I've tried to record in this podcast about like 3 or 4 times, and I think there's great stuff throughout those attempts that I will use somewhere. But it's been a lot of growth and a big journey into getting to this point where I'm sitting here willingly ready to share one of my deepest, darkest skeletons hiding in the closet out into the world. And it is a need. It's not a want, but it is a need and a must in order for me to lay the foundations, a stable foundation, to build Love Out of Lemons into what I know it will be one day. It is a need in terms of my own integrity. It is a need in terms of untangling the noose that has been around my neck since this situation happened when I was 13, and actually being able to confidently step into the world with my shoulders back and my head held high, and not constantly worrying about whether people have seen these nudes that got shared around and leaked when I was about 13, the first year of high school. I can't believe I just said those words so fluently. The reason that this has to be the foundation is linked into where Lemons came from and the vision in which Lemons is and will be going to be. We're really challenging our dialogue here. And I think because it's been a year since I've brought Love Out Lemons into the world, and pretty much a year of silence, because I haven't been able to sit here and have this conversation, but I've been unwilling to put any other conversation pre this when it comes to the podcast. I've been unwilling and unable to be able to sit across from someone, to even be able to like ask anyone to come on the podcast and sit across from them and have a conversation with them, knowing that I've got this big skeleton that one day is going to be brought into the world, and I want to have the power in doing that, and I want to be able to really make the impact that I know this conversation can have. But ultimately, like, it's for me, it's for past me, and it's for me now. And although I know that this conversation will make such a positive impact and save lives, like, I have no doubt in my mind, for future people and for people now exterior to me, this a lot of it, it's for me. And I will loop back to this why. First off, disclaimers of what has changed. I have been diagnosed with ADHD and autism, and that shows viciously up in how I communicate and how I talk and how I go on tangents and pull it back. And I will hope that I'm able to edit it in a way that it is coherent. We already know I have disclaimed my funniness with what I thought was dyslexia, and my dyslexia would play a big part into how I communicate and muddle up sayings and words. But autism is also a significant contributing factor to that, which we've been learning about in the past year. But just in this like literally 6 minutes that I've recorded, I have gone on tangents and not linked back to my core message. So I will try my utmost to be able to link back to the original ideas and complete sentences and conversations and points within this podcast and future podcasts to come. Love Out Lemons came in my second year of university. She had been creeping up around there previously. At the start of my second year of university, I tried to launch an Instagram page called Healing Hand, which was the original domain to Love Our Lemons Instagram that is there now. And essentially, when I was at high school, my dad went through his third cancer. He had 2 skin cancers, and then his third cancer was urethral cancer, which is I'm not pronouncing that right, which is a very rare cancer. And I didn't deal well with not being able to do anything, and we decided to shave our hair. We went on a 6-month campaign. We set a goal of $10,000. We raised the goal of $12,000, and I got my first taste to making an impact and positively impacting people and things, and particularly in spaces. Like, I think, honestly, now looking back to use the dialogue that I use now, I got my first experience of like creating love out of a lemon, and it was like a drug, and I wanted more. But I didn't want to I didn't want it just to be to do with cancer. I saw many lemons in life and wanted a way in which where I could equally bring attention to all the different lemons in life and show up and do and make an impact and make a change. And then we got diagnosed with endometriosis, and well, even pre-diagnosis, the first mention of endometriosis, and I remember clearly sitting at my $50 warehouse desk that was literally as big as a piece of paper in this tiny room in Dunedin, and reading a quote, don't hide your climb up the mountain because it may become someone else's survival guide. And it was like that in combination with endometriosis and everything else going on that I ended up writing out right there and then all the survival guides that I could create within my life and then within Dad's life and then with our community's lives around me. I've been blessed to have a community who have been dealt with horrific lemons and who have created the utmost love out of them and such inspiring lives and have become such incredible human beings. If this is the first Love Our Lemons podcast that you're listening to, Love Our Lemons is on a mission to raise awareness of the lemons that life throws our way and educate people on how to create love out of them. I want to ensure that no one has to go through anything that I or anyone else did that was shit. And if they do, they're not alone. Where personally, Han, our mission is to actively challenge and change every possible aspect of life we possibly can, positively, for all living things, including Mama Earth herself, for future generations and now. And I'm determined to do it whether I think I'll succeed or not. I want to be able to have a epic life for my children and the future grandchildren and everyone else, strangers and all, and I want to be able to stand with my head held high and say I at least tried. In doing this means talking about taboo topics, and it means talking about things that we don't talk about or we've been conditioned not to talk about. I'm very passionate about this. It means having very challenging and uncomfortable conversations, and it means admitting when you're wrong, and it means attempting to figure out when you're right and not letting that fear of being wrong stopping you. That we spill at the start is accountability for me in explaining where lemons came from, because our goal is to share Dad's journeys with his cancers, and where he is at the moment is to share my shave journey, because I still have people coming to me asking how we went about that, and it is such an easy thing to commit to that can make such a big difference in all realms of fundraising. To talk about my endometriosis journey this March, and to finally bring 5 years of documenting my journey and talking to a camera from the moment it was mentioned to me to the world, and that simultaneously links into disease or degree and losing my degree because of my disease, or arguably because the systems don't support people who are chronically ill or mentally ill. So that's accountability to me by adding that at the start of introducing Love Our Lemons and introducing how we came to be 25 from an idea at 19, sitting in our bed in Christchurch, talking to a camera about a situation that happened when I was 13 that has haunted me to this day, and that we're determined to ensure will not haunt me or others for the rest of my life. And I have come to the realization that that means this will not be one conversation, that this is merely opening the conversation and will be an ongoing conversation. And in that, I have a quote I want to read to you guys. I am sweating. I don't know if you can see this. This is sweat running down my arm like this. Oh, it's going to drip. It's sweat. I might be seeming very calm, but I am petrified. This is the scariest thing that I have ever done. And the idea of like editing this and then posting this, the idea of pushing the button of putting this out into the world literally makes my skin crawl. It is terrifying. I hopped on a one-way plane ticket with like 5k to my name and no plans and leaving homeless from here and ending a relationship. I did that, and that to anyone who's done anything close to that, and there's lots of people, knows how terrifying that is, hopping on those one-way tickets, not knowing when you're coming home, and not knowing anyone else out there. And this is like terrifying. But I need to do this in order to move Love Our Lemons forward. Because I want Love Our Lemons to be what it will be. It means having these conversations with people, and it means being very vulnerable, and that is terrifying and scary, and I can't ask other people to do that and to share it with the world and trust that they are willing to share that through me and alongside me into the world through Lemons if I don't do that myself. When I was sitting back in that room in university, I knew instantly that, oh, you're going to have to share all your skeletons hiding in the closet before anyone else does. And to look at all the skeletons in my closet and to really question and go, like, why do I hold such shame around these things? Why are these classed as skeletons? And don't get me wrong, you can fuck up as a human being, and it's a fuck up. It is immensely a fuck up, and there are moments and actions in which human beings can do that guilt and shame. But there are also things that happen in our lives, Lemons, that need to be challenged and should not be classed there. And arguably, I believe this is one of them. So I quickly, throughout the journey of Love Our Lemons, realised that this had to be my foundational piece. I have released a podcast episode previous to this, and then we went silent because I just really struggled doing it. But there's also an innate sense of internalization of what society, and particularly like directly in my community, has impressed onto me about the situation and about the shame that I should carry around the situation and the significance of the situation and the actions that I took in this situation, but that also surrounded the situation. That has made me believe that it would be wrong for me to ask someone to come on and sit and have a podcast with me and to come on and collaborate and sharing and talking about taboo subjects and positively changing the world, arguably, for me to then drop later on this conversation, or for someone to go, hey, do you know what? She sent nudes when she was 13 and everyone saw them. Which, when I'm saying that now, I've done so much work that I'm just like, that's just like a laughable offence. It's so laughable that to believe that people would then like hate me, but I also have to be able to give people, that choice of whether they want to associate with this conversation or not, and someone who's challenging that conversation or not. So that this needs to be first. And what I mean in the internalized is, as this conversation goes, you will see me battling with how I communicate this situation and this journey, and trying not to communicate it as a story, as that's how our brains keep memories and hold memories, is by creating a story and by creating characters and roles in which people play in stories. That's how our brain keeps memories. So being able to strip away that. Also being able to strip away, you'll see me trying to provide context that doesn't quite fit. And what I mean by that is there was so many contributing factors that was happening, so many things that was happening in my life at that time that does make the whole situation so much heavier. But in order to really make the impact in challenging the stigmas and stereotypes and the overall essence of this conversation, I believe that I need those to be removed for the time being, and I want it only to be on the actions that happened and the contributing factors that were actually there, and not just all the other shit surrounding life at that time. Every time I try to, I don't have the dialogue quite yet for some of it. And you'll see me, my way to communicate it is just to go small. It's just to be as small as physically possible, because that's how this all makes me feel. And we're sitting here challenging that. It will be an ongoing conversation, and it will be an ongoing change and battle with how I communicate things and how I say things. And sometimes there will be me going back and forth and trying to just say one word or one little sentence, and just please bear with me. I am healing in real time, and that links to this quote that I'll read you. Last time I read this quote, I cried. This is from, I think it's Rainbow Salt, is who I found it through. I hope you have the courage to do the work. I hope you have the courage to sit down with your demons, to befriend them, to look them in the face, and to not feel fear. I hope you have the courage to stop picking or numbing or avoiding the wounds within, and I hope you choose to heal them instead. I hope you have the courage to understand yourself fundamentally, to open up the deepest, darkest parts of your mind, to unhinge your ribcage, revealing the gritty parts of your soul, the parts no one else claps for, and I hope you have the courage to clean them out. I have sweat dripping around my arm again. I hope you have the courage I hope you have the courage to forgive yourself for what you had to do to kill your sadness. To forgive yourself for all the ways in which you didn't fight for the person you're becoming. I hope you have the courage to nurture your pain, to not disregard it or sweep it under the rug of distraction or convenience. I hope you have the courage to heal yourself, even when it hurts. I am willingly bringing the deepest and darkest devil of mine. I am willingly dancing with the devil in front of you all, and I am showing you my biggest wound and the easiest way to kill me. And I'm bringing it forth in hopes that in healing that of mine, and in challenging society's perception and throwing the daggers straight into those wounds, that I can then heal others and prevent anyone else having such a big gaping wound that for over 10 years of their life they keep their head down, and that they don't have scars that will never leave them. And so let's let the conversation begin. On the last day of primary school, I met a girl I went to schools with, brother, and he was at high school at the time, and we started talking. And over the period between primary school finishing and high school starting, we built up whatever you want to call it. And I built up and formed quite a crush. And during this time period, he asked me to send photos. From what I can recall of the situation, it was along the lines of, if you loved me, you'd send these photos. You've got to send photos like these in order to be in a relationship. And this is just what people do. I would have been 13 at the time. But at that time, I felt, I guess, somewhat safe. And was valuing this person's conversation with me. I was uneducated on what could possibly go wrong, and sent a whole range of nudes, doing a whole range of things on my little Nokia at the time, just to put in how long ago this was, and Nokia in a mirror, because you didn't have front cameras, which arguably now look back was a blessing for where technology was at. It was also an absolute contributor to it, but if any of this happened now, which is more reason to sit here and talk about it, it terrifies me to think how big this could have been. I sent these before I even started school. I think that that relationship with that person, not in the sense of a romantic relationship, but any like relationship with that person just diminished. I started a new school, a very small school, an all-girls school, in a very small town. And for the start, until I think it was about March, I think March was the first time I had a mention of this, and June's when it all fell apart. I made really close friends, two in particular. I felt good, as good as you could be. And I remember sitting in German one day across from a girl and her going to me, "Did you send nudes?" And I remember going, "What?" And she goes, "Oh, you sent nudes, eh?" And I remember going, "No," like just straight into defensive, because what are you going to do? And I remember my world shattering then and there. She said, "Oh, well, this other school in the town, it's not what they're saying." And like life changed. Just completely changed. Like I lost everyone overnight. Like the colour of life got sucked. Like colour from life. I don't even know how to describe it. My life ended. My world ended. The colour got sucked out of my life. Those who were my friends, like within a period, disappeared. Everyone disappeared. 2012 was when the world was meant to end, and mine did. Mine did. And the year is very blurry, but we have some set dates and moments. And I look at this almost as like, I would love to do a podcast in the sense of a cause and consequence essay, if anyone's done history, just to keep the theme of high school. Because there was causes, events, and consequence, and the consequences are etched onto my skin in essence. And then we'll fast forward a wee bit, and the denying started to increase, and the whispers turned incredibly loud. And one night at home, on June the 5th, I got sent a message from someone at one of the other schools, who was quite big, quite popular at the time, with "Go send dirty pics to some boys." Yeah. June the 5th, 2012. I come back with, "What the fuck, I said nothing." Going all through it, bullshit, goes back and forth, not what I'd seen. And quickly, I learned that at a party, I have sweat dripping onto me, at a party, ironically and conveniently with people from all different schools, somehow for entertainment, my nudes became that of that. So I sent the nudes at a very young age. There we were. People had seen my nudes. People were talking about seeing my nudes. And for what I knew at this point, they were still within hold from the person I'd sent them to. No one at any point turned and asked about the situation or about how they'd been sent, when they'd been sent, why they'd been sent. The shock horror was just that they'd been sent, and the shame and the guilt and the slut shaming, and everything got placed on 13-year-old Han, and I gobbled it up like a pill and swallowed it down, and it settled within my bones. We somehow built enough of a life over the next few months until I think mid-year, where I got a boyfriend, for whatever a boyfriend was at that age, where you just hold hands and all the cutie stuff. And we also moved house, and I started going on a new bus. And on that bus, there was a group of us, and they used to play Truth and Dare. And there's a specific person who loved to shit stir, I must just say. It's in his nature. And we got dared to hold hands. A picture of us holding hands got taken. Like, it's just the juxtaposition and the contrast to how, like, light and significant holding hands and a bigger deal holding hands was for a deer at that age to then what we're talking about of like nudes being sent and significant slut shaming really just highlights the age at it and just the environment of the situation. I'm already just going, I'm not explaining this the way I'd love to, but we're going to push forward as much as we can. That picture of us holding hands got shown at lunchtime at school, at the all boys school, and a fight broke out. And at that fight, as it would be, what's this fight about? My name got brought up. And when my name got brought up, my nudes got brought up. And for the first time, my nudes didn't just get brought up, my nudes got shared and sent everywhere. And a period later, at my school, I got called into the dean's office. I think it might have even been lunchtime. So in mere moments after this fight, I, 13-year-old Han, got called into the dean's room quite loudly, may I add. And I sat across from the first adult who knew about this situation. And I got blamed and told how incredibly inappropriate and horrific and bad it was of me to have had done such a thing. That I was the cause and that I was that fight was because of me, and therefore I need to, I don't know how to even word this because it's so bonkers. I was the person, I was the cause, I was the perpetrator, I was therefore also, that conversation and that adult was going to me, not only do we as a school, but the school where the fight happened blame you for the entirety of the situation. And luckily, I say luckily now, people watching and anyone older will cringe at me saying luckily, I remember her going, I presume because it was so big that your parents know about this, so I won't bother giving them a call, and instead we're going to sit here and have this conversation. And I nodded because I couldn't fathom my life getting anything any worse, let alone my parents knowing. And that conversation cemented to me at that age. And I remember walking out of that room going, this is so wrong. No one has asked me about how this situation played out. No one has sat down with love to educate me on what was wrong within the situation of sending nudes. And no one has asked me how I am. No one has taken a moment to look at, hey, just logically, as I feel like most, like now at 25 even, I can look at a situation if that came forward and gone, okay, regardless of how out of touch you are with what goes on in a school as an adult, you've got a fight happening about this person and nudes being shared and shown. And if it's happening here, and if I know about it that quickly, then surely this school must know about it. So, like this perception of it being all fun and joyful, and that I'm just having a big laugh about it is just so bonkers to me. Or just the complete blindness that you would think or choose, like the ignorance, like the choice of ignorance to take on the stance that you would not have, that if this was all going on and if you were feeling so horrified about this, that this person in front of you, that this little girl in front of you would not be going through absolute fucking hell. And life just fell apart. And every part and every ounce of it was horrific. And every moment of where I had to show face in any part of that community, from school to walking down the street to going to touch to any of it, was just horrific. And people would come up to me and talk about having them on a SD chip. Oh, I've got your nudes on my phone. I've got your nudes on my SD chip. And this grew. I would go down to Queenstown. That used to be a safe space for me. And people had my nudes there. And people in Christchurch had my nudes. And people in Dunedin had my nudes. And all of a sudden, for a 13-year-old girl, the whole of the South Island had seen her naked and in very intimate, vulnerable, confidential space at a very young age. To think that I'd had my period for less than 6 months then from when those notes were sent is horrific. And then on top of it, and this is the importance of why we need to talk about these situations, is I did the one action out of this whole situation that I hold shame and guilt for, and that of someone completely exterior to the situation had piped up about a past experience with me and him. And when it got brought to my attention, because I was drowning so much and because I just couldn't fathom life getting any worse, and I knew that that would contribute like fucking dynamite to the situation, I lied and cried wolf, which is so cruel. Like, I look back at it now, like my skin just like my blood curdles at that thought of crying wolf and of having someone so exterior to then being held as a consequence and having murmurs going back to him and not to the person in the situation that had created all the mess. And the reason I'm sitting here to talk about this, and one of the reasons of my why, which I'll quickly now go into about why I'm talking about this and why I'm sitting here as a 25-year-old talking about a situation when I was 13, is because that situation almost took my life. But there is also a problem within that of, you don't corner a caged animal. That's what I was. And it almost ruined someone else's life. That saying of, if someone's drowning, don't go save them because they will drown you, is literally that. And he wasn't trying to save me, but he also was just doing it what boys do at that age and in that situation, because none of us knew better, because we don't talk about these situations and we shame these situations, and none of us knew better. And I think today, no one at that age in those situations still don't know better, which is the problem, and it's why we need to have these conversations about these situations. I hold shame and guilt over my actions within that time and how that impacted him. I don't hold shame and guilt over sending those nudes. I hold empathy and love for the little girl, like literally the little girl, that had no understanding of the impact of sending them and of who she was sending them to and whether she wanted to send them. I have so much empathy and love for that. And I want to also stand clearly on, if you take the age out of it, if you are in a loving, not even a loving relationship, to me, now as a 25-year-old, at the right age, and that's open for debate, but at the right age, if you are feeling confident and loved and sexy, and it is of your free own will to go send a nude picture, all power to you. That is so powerful. I think we need to educate on the consequences of that, but that is not for the person sending it to hold. In any other confidential agreement, in any other area of life, if someone breaks that, it is a legal issue. Breaking confidentiality is a legal issue. If you have something in a confidential agreement and you take it out, a contract, and you go share it with the world, there's huge consequences for that. And it is not on the person who has shared the confidential information. It is on the person who's broken that. So how come in situations where someone is sharing themselves to someone, and when they share it, it goes on the person who sent it, not the person who shared it? not the person who broke it. And there's no questions about the situation in which those were shared either. And honestly, I have love, because my trust was not broken in a relationship. My trust was broken in something that I couldn't even call a friendship now, looking back. If this was to happen in a relationship, and honestly, if this was to happen when I was older and with someone I loved, which you see time and time again happen, I have sat in rooms, and I hate to admit it, where people in relationships, lads in relationships, sorry to stereotype right here, have shared the nudes of their partner, who have sent that in confidentiality and out of love and trust. Like, it's insane. And it always falls back on the person who sent the photos. And I don't want to demonize this. I want to neutralize this. And I want it to be open in conversation and to challenge it. And the reason at that age where I was so terrified for my parents to find out is because I knew that their stance would stand like this, and that there's also a problem now that people's issues, like my opening question is, out of this situation, what was the thing that was wrong? What was the wrong action? And it usually comes back to me sending the nudes, which if you take my situation away from the age we're at and pull it to an age that in which arguably, I wish I could say 18, but let's be real here, people are doing stuff from 16 onwards. What's wrong in the action? Because to me, I wholeheartedly believe we have all autonomy over our body and our choice. I don't see sex as wrong. I don't see sex as taboo. I don't see sex as a sin. I see sex as a natural, normal thing. I see sex as a very liberating thing. It is all down to the consent. And it is all down to the context surrounding that of that action, or anything surrounding that action, like sending nude photos, that holds the issue. Whether it is someone sending it who has been peer pressured or not wanting to send it or blackmailed, whether it is someone sending it who lacks the education and is young, whether it is, but I come back and back again to, if someone willingly sends it, all power to them. The issue in these situations is not that a nude photo has been sent, is that why has it been sent, should be the question. And what situation and relationship has it been sent? Who is the person asking for the fucking picture? Because there is issues where people didn't ask for the picture and the picture was sent, and that is also an issue. Is there consent on both sides? And then why has this picture that has been sent with confidentiality and trust within between two people now shared out into the world? That is where, in my brain, it is wrong. My situation has an extra layer of age. It has an extra layer of my community, like the support that should have been there lacking. There is layers to this. I was 13, and I was new into a school and new into a community, and you can't just pack up and leave. Joy to the World, Ask FM soon came along with Instagram and then Snapchat, and people never forgot. Time just went on and people fucked up. And then people focused on their fuck ups instead of mine. But for every room I entered into, and for every place I went, and for every event I did, and even until my last year at school, the halls I walked down, there were looks and whispers and comments and hand grabs and bum grabs and boob grabs, and just an overall attitude from bullying to harassment to just a significant coldness that I lived with. School was a horrific place for me, and the older years made my life misery. And I think there's a degree of them who have no idea that they did. I shaved my hair and raised $12,000, and that had no connection to this, but still the first thing that came out of people's mouths when meeting me or associating me to something was that of those photos and those new photos being sent. I went into university and into a hall with some main people who terrorized me at a younger age, knowing about it with absolute fear that people would find out. I entered into the flat I'm sitting in, realizing that there was connections, terrified whether they would make connections or know about that situation. I'm 25 and my life is still ruled with innate fear that people know about this situation. And I have played small and I have accepted behavior and shit because of this situation and because of how this situation was handled and treated and reacted to, and how I was educated on the situation and this situation happening and unfolding. And I am quite honestly over it. I have read, and we have all read, lives being taken because of situations like these. Lives being ruined because of situations like these. Everyone knows someone who has known someone or had something like this happen to them. It wasn't until last year where Electric Avenue, which is almost a year to the day from filming this, that I was standing in a crowd in a mosh looking for people, and one of the people who made my life hell and made me be as small as possible when walking down the hallways at school, came up to me and said, "You've got to keep doing what you're doing. You've got to keep talking about what you're talking about because you're really going to change someone's life. So you're making an impact. You've got to keep doing it." And then proceeded to ask if I was okay before leaving me. And it floored me. It blew me away because one, I had in real time someone coming up to me, communicating to me that the life in which they contributed to me wanting to take is now making a positive impact, that I am still here. And the person coming up to me, encouraging me to keep doing it, was one of the people that I saw in my head every time I sat down to film and actually do something like it, and kept me in a box. I have the utmost forgiveness and love for everyone in that situation, including the person who shared my nudes and everyone else along it. I have forgiveness and love, and I have an understanding that we all did the best we could at that time with the knowledge and stuff we had, with the tools and knowledge we had, including to my dean, including to my school. It doesn't mean that I believe that it was right and acceptable in which was done, but I can't sit here with that experience and let it rule my life any longer. Yeah, I hold the utmost love and forgiveness to everyone involved in that situation, including the person who shared my nudes, including the dean and the school, including the parents, including the bullies, which I will at that stage were bullies, and to myself and to past Han for doing the best that we could and acting in a way that was informed by the tools and knowledge we had at that point in time, which was severely lacking. That's what highlights this whole situation. That's why I'm sitting here, is because it was severely lacking. And there's also stereotypes and stigmas and belief that needs to be challenged surrounding these situations, surrounding these topics, sex, and taboo conversations, and nudity, and confidential conversations. Later on, there was a girl 2 years younger than me that went through the exact same thing. And I remember in between her and my stage, they brought the cops in to come speak to us. And at that stage, the belief was, and what we got told, and I remember sitting in the fucking hall and having a whole lot of people look at me as this was being said by police officers who are meant to keep you safe. Say, well, if you send it, they can do whatever they want with it, so it's your fault for sending it. Which was what the school essentially said to me, but then deepened it by going, it's your fault for sending this, and then it's your fault that a fight broke out about you, and that's because you sent it. Which is wrong. Now you can go to court with it. Now time is changing, society's views are changing, we're finally acting like all those years of evolution isn't for nothing. But it's also not good enough. And it took Steph Claire Smith talking on the Kick podcast for me to hear her talk about going through the exact same situation. For me to be like, oh, like everything I've internalized because of how my community reacted to me at the time, I don't hold when it comes to her, so why am I doing the same for me? And that conversation made such a big fucking impact on me and helped me heal so much, that how much can this conversation help heal? I hope that everyone who contributed to that situation has grown as much as the person who came up to me at Electric Ave. That was also a big wake-up call of like, I've grown so much since that situation, so I have to have enough love and belief that everyone else has. But I also have to do this for the chance that they have not. Because I never got asked about my side of the story. And I never got asked if I was okay. And no one ever checked in on me. And it's time to share that perspective for that situation, in hopes that those people who haven't changed don't go and relay that situation in someone else's life. My why. Some people, and this is one reason why it took so long for me to sit down and do this, some people will look at the situation and innately believe and say, why are you bringing it up when it was so long ago? Why are you bringing it up when no one's talking about it, no one's thinking about it? You are literally just giving more power to it. You are attention seeking, blah, 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 blah. And I have names and faces in my head for those people that would say such a things. I remember saying to a really good friend who was like the only person that was my friend at school and would sit with me at lunch at the time, who's still in my life. I remember when I sent her so much messages freaking out about this, hyperventilating that I was about to do this middle of last year, going am I fucking crazy, saying I'm terrified for the group chats that this is about to be sent into and the conversations that are going to surround it. And her coming back going like, that's not why you're going to do it. That's not why you're doing it, Han. And that's so true. First and foremost, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for past Han. I'm doing this for future Han. I'm doing this for me now because I'm sick of being small and keeping my head down. I'm sick of the consequences that this situation has had physically on me and had on me. I don't want to hold shame when asked about this, about what I did in order to numb that pain. And that links deeply into the next why, the most overpowering why, in the sense that I don't want anyone to ever have to go through what I went through. I don't want anyone have to turn to numbing the pain the way in which I did. And I don't want anyone to think that they're so alone and that they've got nowhere to turn and to internalize what their community and society is saying to them about a situation that is not theirs, that is not their shame to hold. That is not theirs to hold. We fuck up as human beings. That's what we do. I don't believe that my fuck up was the actions. I believe the fuck up was within who I trusted and the education that was surrounding me at the time. I look back at that situation and think that at that time the community and older people and the school should have taken a step back and go, you know what, fuck, this is a big issue, this is a problem. The problem here is that we clearly have not educated people correctly in all orders of the situation, and though we hope that people at this age would not be acting in such situations and doing such things, we got to just accept the fact that they are, and telling them not to is not solving the problem. And we need to change our tone. We need to figure out how we can educate them on these situations so that when they do happen, because they are going to happen, the same with like, don't do drugs and don't drink and smoke, kids. It's hopeless. It's costing more lives than actually sitting down and having the conversation about these things. And to change it, to act on it. You can acknowledge that something was wrong whilst also supporting that person with love and ensuring that that doesn't happen again. The worst of it for me is that, no, I didn't learn from that situation. I innately listened to what everyone in my community told me I was, and I stepped fully into that role of that slut, which is sitting on this piece of paper at the middle of it and the core of it for the things that I wanted to talk about here, which I haven't even looked at. Situations like these cost lives. Not talking about this cost lives. Carrying on the way we have been cost lives. I want to hear another one of these situations going on and knowing that someone might be feeling what I felt and might be dealing with what I dealt with, and me to try prevent getting any more shit to not speak out. I can handle it. I can hold it. I'm fucking terrified, but I can do it. And I'm willing to be that shield for anyone else going through this. I hope that me talking out is the same as Steph Claire Smith was for me talking out. And that it feels like a shield of going like, you know what, you can say whatever you want to me. There's a whole lot of other people that have been in the same situation. And I don't believe they're the person that you've made me believe I am. Grow up. Let's actually sit down and have a conversation about why you feel so passionately about what you feel about this situation and what was wrong, what was right. And let's actually converse on this and see what we can do to make sure that this shit doesn't happen. There is a potent underlayer here that really constricts my ability to communicate this in a factual and educational sense. And that is just pain and shame and like a personal experience. And I think no matter how far I come in this healing journey, and from when I first sat down and wanted to communicate this to now when I'm sitting down and communicating this and what I want to communicate this and why I want to communicate this has grown and changed. I hope it will carry on and grow and change. But at the core of it, it is here. There is a, no matter how much I want to change it and not have it, there is an potent essence of I will never forget who gave me a hard time when times were already hard. And I hope in saying that anyone who has a situation like this happening around them stops and thinks before they go and swing their boot in a kick, thinking that them communicating to that person that what they did wasn't a good idea is going to add anything but pushing them closer to 6 feet in the ground. When I was in that moment and in that stage, I remember having two girls who I considered my closest friends at the time, and a girl who I had never met at another school. I would then later find out 2 years later that they had a group chat and created a group chat, and for whatever right in their mind they thought that they had, that they decided that they would all message me at differing times telling me how much I needed to go and get some self-respect. And I remember sitting in my room having the first one, and then I remember also standing in my room and having the third one come in and like feeling like my world, you know, before a bomb when it constricts, like that's what it felt like. I remember having that last one come in and really debating how I was going to go do it. I smile because it's just I said that this podcast would be heavy, and it feels very heavy, and I'm here just scrambling, trying to find a way to add some love into it, and innately the love right at the moment directly is me sitting here and speaking it and being willing to share it. But I knew that this was going to feel heavy, and I don't have much pride in how I've communicated this, but I do know that I have communicated it, and that it's just the start of a conversation, and that you've just got to lay out the details that would like the facts, And that the love right at the moment out of this lemon is that I'm sitting here willing to talk about it. And that we're starting a conversation and we're ripping the can off and I'm opening my closet and going, hey, here's the deepest, darkest skeleton that's, tied that noose around my neck. And in doing that, it loosens the noose on my neck. In doing that, I'm taking the power away that this situation has held on me. I'm actively challenging those stigmas and stereotypes and the internalization that I have carried with me. And it creates a space and place for change, for conversation and change. And honestly, to anyone who is listening to this, who was surrounding in those moments or was connected to such a thing, I'm here to have a conversation. I'm here to meet up for a coffee and talk to face as the adults that we are, and how, when looking back, that situation looks for one another. Two truths can coexist. And at the core of it, I'm going to finish this off with a video from Brene Brown. But at the core of it, and at the core of the why, is shame can be removed when stories can... There's a quote. Shame can be removed when stories are shared safely. And that is the heart of Lemons. And that is the heart of what I'm trying to challenge and do, is to look at all the lemons in life and bring awareness to all the lemons in life, and then educate people how they can create love out of them. And sometimes that education's to people directly in the moment. Sometimes that education is for the past selves. Sometimes that education is not going to show up until we are parents ourselves, or until we are close to a situation like that again. Sometimes that education is how you can help in your community. Having a conversation like this and sharing a lemon like this compared to sharing a lemon about endometriosis or cancer or climate change all looks differently. And sometimes these conversations, the awareness and the education is there for those high up in our society. I'm well aware that this conversation starts and impacts those within my community, but it also challenges those in the education system and who were a part of it, and also who are now a part of the education system, and how they would react to such things happening, because there's no doubt that there's photos being shared and posted everywhere all the time around schools, and particularly with where technology has grown into. And it's also about how we widely, as the government reacts and starts talking about shit, Winnie Peters, I'm looking at you, carries on this belief of taboo topics, that things like sex should not be educated or talked about and should be swept under the rug and been hush-hush until a certain age, which is just absolutely bullshit. Shame can be removed when stories are shared safely. So here I am, laying a foundation of lemons, with my biggest lemon, trusting that this is a safe space to share my story, and in doing so, challenging that shame that still sits heavily with me. I really wanted to finish it off with a video that I have from Brene Brown, which I'm going to share with you very soon, to really round out that video. And in doing so, I found another video in which I love of hers, which I'm going to share now. And this video is not, I'm not putting this in here as a protective mechanism to the response that I know will come inevitably with this conversation I'm starting. But I'm putting this in here because it holds the innate fear of why I didn't do this for so long and why I still am scared to do this.
I want to be able to say that I contributed more than I criticized. And so if all you're doing is criticizing people who are trying to engage in conversations that heal and bring hope, shut up. I mean, really, just don't talk, because it's not useful.
I think I had directly, when I talked about this and wanting to do this and talked about the situation to people initially, that was the reaction. And this is not useful. This is not healing and not providing hope. What is this going to add? And I sat in that for a very long time. And I think I'm really feeling that right now because, like I said at the start, this conversation right now and the start of this conversation isn't hopeful and it isn't healing. It's quite the opposite. And it is me sitting here kind of looking back, if no kind of criticizing a whole situation that happened and everyone's like role in that situation. However, so it has to be there in order to provide the hope and in order to provide the healing and in order to actually be useful in ensuring that this shit doesn't happen. I have, yes, spent years of my life constrained and restricted and held back by this situation. And I have also spent years of my life creating and curating a lot of I don't know how to word it, a lot of things that I want to incorporate through Lemons to ensure that this doesn't have to happen. The first of that is literally providing a space to have these conversations, to be able to sit across from people, recorded or not recorded, in different realms and areas that have the ability to ensure that when these situations happens, that it doesn't look like what I went through. And that's from conversations, that's from challenging conversations, that's from challenging ideas and challenging beliefs and challenging, stigmas and stereotypes, and sitting there talking about the stuff that no one talks about in these taboo topics. That in itself has to happen and can only happen if you provide that space and provide the honesty and the vulnerability to share and like bluntly share the shit that, you get told not to share and that I've been told not to share by so many people. I do have a want to go and stand and talk to schools. I do have a want to go and stand and talk to a whole range of people. This doesn't just happen in schools. This is very prominent in corporate and in all different realms of life. And to provide and build platforms and apps. And I have so many different realms in which I believe tools, like I guess that's the word I'm trying to find, is that I've spent years needing them myself as creating a toolbox in order to help those going through it, but also creating tools and a toolbox that I believe others can use and that our education system could use and that people in government could use. In order to be able to actually bring those tools into life, I have to start here and share where I stand. And I do remember having a conversation with someone and then them going, you realize that no matter what you do, you may be closing the door on that box you've been trying so desperately to get out of. You may be constraining yourself in those four walls of that girl who sent those photos. And yeah, I may be. It may be that every other conversation we have after this and anything else anything else that I do with Live Out Lemons absolutely goes amiss or is just like because of this. And I'm okay with that. I am. I guess this is me choosing to try own my story instead of it owning me. And in doing so, I hope that it helps other people own their own stories. Whatever role they played in such stories.
So, courage is to tell our story with our whole heart. We are meaning-making people. Humans are meaning-making machines. How we make meaning is story. And so what happens is that most of us have stories that make up our lives, that explain who we are, how we see the world, and we orphan a number of these stories because they don't fit with who we think we're supposed to be. But the problem is that our worthiness, our wholeness lives inside those stories. So you either own a story or you stand outside of it and you hustle and you pretend for your worthiness. And so what I think the biggest surprise I think for me around Rising Strong especially is when you deny a story.
We need to what?
When you deny a story, it defines you. When you own a story, you get to write the ending. Yeah.
And so I'm going to finish this off with an acknowledgement. And this links a little bit to a person who's helped inspire me to get over my shit and sit down and actually film this, who acknowledged their own flaws in an environment where I don't see anyone acknowledge their flaws. And it really helped me be able to sit here today and go, there's power in acknowledging your flaws. There's power in acknowledging that, because they are, as this person said, they do make up who you are and how you show up in the world. And this has significantly plays a significant part in who I am and how I show up. So in honouring that and honouring that person, I want to acknowledge those listening right now. I want to acknowledge those listening as this first comes out and coming back to it after a year of silence from me. I want to acknowledge the people who are listening because they were in that time of my life with me, whatever role you played in it. I want to acknowledge the people listening to this. I want to say hopefully, but we're going to stand here with confidence. Years on since I released this podcast, coming back to it because of what we're doing and what Love Our Lemons looks like. I want to acknowledge the people listening to this who can relate. And most importantly, I want to acknowledge the people who are in it. Whether you are the person who sent them, whether you're the person who asked them and shared them, whether you're the person who talked shit about this person, whether you're the person who knocked that person in the hallway, whether you're the person who laughed in a group chat, or whether you're the person who just sat in a group chat silently as these have been shared. And honestly, I've almost played a part in all of it, in all those roles before. So I acknowledge everyone who is taking the time out of their day to listen to something that is significantly heavy. And I am acknowledging how heavy that is. And I'm coming to say, please come back time and time again to hear about the love that come out of these lemons. The goal is not to share a lemon and then the love. The goal is to share the love and the lemon within the same podcast. And the love right now is that there is a podcast of me talking about this. So I will roll the thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing to tune into Love Our Lemons. Love Our Lemons is conversations where we raise awareness around the lemons life throws our way and how you can create love from these lemons. My mission is to positively change and challenge every aspect I can for future generations and all living things, including the planet itself. Starting with providing an environment for conversations about topics people struggle to whisper, let alone share publicly. I'm lifting up the carpet from what we've swept all this bullshit under. Lemons is about ensuring we can limit the amount of shit that people have to go through, and if they do have to go through it, they don't have to go through it alone. Whether it be charities to donate to, events to participate or support in, or merely a dialogue you can incorporate in your day-to-day use that makes someone feel seen and supported and heard where they once wouldn't have before, we want to provide this for you. I don't want people to walk away from these conversations feeling defeated, not knowing where to go or what to do and overwhelmed. I want to provide a space where you walk away with tools, actions, dialogue, where sharing ours and many others climb up the mountain so it can be written in stone and shared through generations. So if I haven't said this yet, hey, I'm Han. I'm just a girl on a mission to change the world. And as cliche and cheesy as it may sound, I won't ask you to go easy on me, more so to join me, whether it be a minute, 10, or every episode. This is not a gift from me to you, but a gift from you to me. Sharing your journeys, your battles, your scars, your survival guides. And to little Han, listening, believing, trusting, and choosing to stay, thank you. This is for you, from me.